Sacramento Kings guard Keon Ellis has his career night overshadowed by bad officiating and a wild, controversial finish. The Kings fall to the Hawks 109-108, and we'll break it all down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make a big return this season on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if that bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter from ABC 10 News here in Sacramento. And two things can be true from tonight's 109-108 loss inside of the Golden One Center for the Sacramento Kings. Number one is that the officiating in this game was terrible. And number two is the Sacramento Kings also have to look at themselves in the mirror and their mistakes in the fourth quarter that directly led to this loss here tonight. And unfortunately, both of these things come before what we should be leading this show with, what we should be talking about, which is Keon Ellis and the incredible night that he had shooting the basketball. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to push Keon and the night that he had to the next segment or to later on in the show, because we have to start this show addressing what happened in this fourth quarter. Although specifically the officiating was pretty bad the entire night, especially the second half. It was very apparent. Like the term that I would use to describe the officiating in tonight's game was disruptively inconsistent. That's the way I would describe this officiating, because it killed the flow of the game. Right, did not allow for kind of the fast-paced up-and-down battle that we should have seen throughout the fourth quarter without so many whistles and so many interruptions. And calls on one side of the floor were not the same as calls on the other side. And unfortunately, those calls went in favor of the Atlanta Hawks tonight. That, combined with what we're also going to talk about is where the Kings need to take accountability, and I'll get into that in a little bit, is what led to this Kings loss. I'm going to play a couple of bites for you here, a couple of sound bites from the post-game pressers. We'll start with De'Aaron Fox, who, as you're going to see, or audio listeners, as you can clearly hear by his word choice and his tone, he was not happy at all with the officiating tonight. Take a listen.
De'Aaron, what did you see on that final play of the game? And it looked like Dyson may have stepped out of bounds, but there was no call there at the end.
Refs didn't make a call. Too many reports are always funny, so can't do anything about it now.
When it comes to the refs, what was the conversations you were having with them and what they were saying to you specifically when you were looking for a call and not getting it?
I don't even know. But I got to delay a game because apparently I gave it to the wrong referee. So I said, okay, every time somebody gives the wrong ref the ball, call it delay a game. Now, I always know what ref the ball goes to, but let's not act like the right ref gets the ball. You get the ball, you throw it to the right ref, and you play the game. They call it a delay a game, but it is what it is.
What did you see in that final play? Just can you take us through from your perspective what you saw?
Hands are part of the ball when it's convenient. So.
In the fourth quarter alone, Fox was obviously fouled, attacking the basket. The Hawks playing very physical. He does finish at the rim, and there's no foul call. Should have been a three-point play, and I caught it on camera, posted it on my Twitter account, @MattGeorgeSack, if you want to see it there. But De'Aaron turns to the official and goes, call the blocking foul. Call the blocking foul. It's clearly a blocking foul. Blow the whistle. Call that foul. A foul that the Atlanta Hawks were getting on the other end of the floor. A few possessions later, De'Aaron Fox is quite literally, after going for an offensive rebound, pulled to the ground and falls out of bounds. The Hawks take over possession, have a fast break the other way. I believe they end up scoring. De'Aaron Fox stands up. There's an official standing literally right next to him after he gets pulled down. Doesn't blow his whistle, doesn't say a thing, lets it ride, lets it go. De'Aaron Fox had some choice words for him, and quickly thereafter, De'Aaron Fox was issued a technical foul, and it was a long time coming. That technical foul was brewing, and it kind of started with the incident that Fox talked about in that soundbite that I shared with you. The fact that Fox got called for a delay of game penalty earlier on in the game when he gave the ball to the wrong official. First off, if that's true, if that's the reason why he got that delay of game penalty, that's absolutely absurd. And I remember that play vividly because I thought Fox was going to get a tech on that play because he spent a long time talking directly to that official who, I guess to the official's credit, listened, talked back a little bit, but did not call the tech, let it go, let Fox say his piece, and then the game continued. But that was the start of the frustrations that got to a boiling point that resulted in a Fox technical foul. And unfortunately, while we can't point to that moment and go, this is why the Sacramento Kings lost, a technical foul means a free throw for the Hawks on the other end. And how many points did the Kings lose by tonight? 1 point. Sometimes those texts need to happen for you to send a message. But sometimes those points can really come back to bite you. So De'Aaron Fox, it's crazy to me, some of the foul calls that De'Aaron Fox doesn't get, and there were some egregious calls in the fourth quarter that Fox did not receive, or the Sacramento Kings did not receive, while there were plenty of quick whistles in favor of the Atlanta Hawks on the other end. Again, I'm not saying that's the reason why the Sacramento Kings lost this game, because there is accountability that the Kings have to take, which we'll talk about coming up in the podcast. But the officiating was so blatantly in the way, again, disruptively inconsistent in that fourth quarter, that we can't not talk about it, especially with how this game ended. Here's another bite I want to play for you. Mike Brown talking about a couple of things. The first one is him talking about his perspective on the final play where De'Aaron Fox, after the Kings got a stop, Kings down by 1, Fox dribbles down the other end of the floor, no timeout taken, looking to get his shot. Dyson Daniels makes a, I think, really, really good defensive play. Ball goes out of bounds. The ball doesn't go out of bounds. Dyson Daniels saves it from going out of bounds. Looked like he did step out of bounds, and there should have been time on the clock. Officials did not call anything. Time ran out, and that was it. And players were kind of standing around on the floor going like, are we going to review this? What's the call? Are we going to take a look at this? And the refs just walked to the scorer's table, grabbed some towels, and left. So that was it. That was how this game ended. So the way this game ended, Mike shared his perspective on what he saw in that final possession, and then also talked a little bit about, I thought this bite was interesting, talked about foul calls that Trae Young got tonight and Trae Young gets that De'Aaron Fox doesn't get. Take a listen.
I couldn't see it from where I am, but, all of these, obviously our video guys saw it, and it looked like there was 0.9 seconds on the clock. It looked like he stepped out of bounds. And so, it'd be one of those things in the last 2-minute reports. If he did step out of bounds, obviously the league would say, oops, I'm sorry, you guys lost. But he stepped out of bounds, and if he didn't, then, they were right. But I didn't see it until I watched the video. And like I said, it looked like he was on the line, but I don't know.
And there's no way to review, right? What's
that?
There's no way to ask for a review?
Well, because I think they just let the clock run, so there was no stoppage. And so once the game is over, I think it's over. But again, from my vantage point, because it was all the way down on the baseline, I couldn't see. Where I'm sitting, man, he's got a lot of bodies coming at him, and he's getting bumped. And you look at a guy like Trae Young, and maybe because Trae Young sells it real good, Trae Young really flops his head and flops his body, does a heck of a job convincing, the officials that he got hit, and that's why he's one of the league leaders in free throw attempts, and maybe Fox has to do a better job at that. I don't know.
Let's talk about the second thing first. De'Aaron Fox not selling enough compared to Trae Young. This is not a new thing that we've talked about here on Locked On Kings, right? De'Aaron Fox, not only is he kind of anti-selling fouls and flailing, he actively calls it out on the floor, right? He's known for, and I've caught it on video many times, if a player flops, he'll do the flopping motion right back at them and also do it towards the official and go, like, this is what he's doing. Stop giving him the foul calls. So Fox is very anti-flopping, very anti-selling calls. That's just not in his game. That's not who he is. And he said that to us. He's told that to us before. But you have guys like Trae Young. You have guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who are masters at just the quick head back or the flail or whatever they do to get those whistles. They seem to get them. Look, Trae Young had a very weird night. Trae Young had like a Rajon Rondo-esque night tonight. He got a boatload of assists, like 19 assists or something like that. Didn't really look interested in scoring the basketball tonight. He took only 7 shot attempts, and yet he got to the free throw line 5 times. De'Aaron Fox took 23 shot attempts tonight, only got to the foul line 4 times. De'Aaron Fox, much more aggressive attacking the basket, looking to score clearly compared to Trae Young, and yet Young is getting more foul calls than Fox is. Why? It must be because of how Trae sells them, because it can't be a star treatment thing, because how the hell can De'Aaron Fox have a 60-point night followed by a 49-point night, and the officials still don't give him the star calls that he deserves, that many other stars in this league get, that he for some reason just does not seem to get? It has to be him just not selling it enough. So I don't know if that's something that Fox just has to get over or kind of sell his soul to the devil a little bit to sell those foul calls a little bit more and maybe flop a little bit more to help get him to the line. I don't know what the solution is, but something's got to change. And maybe Fox is the one that has to make that change because the officiating's been this way. I know Fox had like 19 free throws or something like that the other night. Last night he went 14 of 19, I'm pretty sure, on Saturday night. So he's gotten to the line a number of numerous times before. It's not like the officials are blatantly out to get him, but he definitely should have gotten to the line more than 4 times in tonight's game. Now let's go back and talk about that final possession and what Mike Brown kind of broke down and Mike Brown talked about. Look, I'll be honest with you, it's not going to be the most popular thing. I don't have a problem with Dyson Daniels not being called for a foul on that last play stripping De'Aaron Fox. I don't have a problem with it at all. I thought it was a really, really good defensive possession. Going back and looking at it in slow motion, if you want to say Dyson Daniels hit Fox's wrist, I can see how you feel that way. To me, it's not definitive enough necessarily for me to go absolutely blatantly that should have been a foul call, even if De'Aaron Fox thinks so. You heard in that soundbite earlier, he said the hand is part of the ball only when it's convenient to the officials. So he clearly feels like he got fouled on that last play. Look, big defensive play like that, down the stretch, I'm okay with Fox not getting bailed out or getting that foul call there. That being said, what I'm absolutely not okay with is how in the world, when the NBA is adding all these challenged plays and all this initiative of reviews and things like that, in the effort to get things as correct as possible, how in the world do we not take a second to look at that final play where it looked like Dyson Daniels stepped out of bounds trying to save that ball? When he did that, there would have been 0.9 seconds on the clock. Now, I'm not saying that the Kings would have won the game or anything like that had that call, or had the refs made a call there and given the Kings an opportunity. But they at least would have had a shot at it. 0.9 seconds is enough time to tip something up or really quickly catch and shoot. You have a shot, right? Instead of just letting the game clock run out, not even taking a look at it, and in the official's case, just walking off the floor and calling it drop dead done. I disagree with that completely. An aspect of that final possession, though, that I want to make sure I talk about too is, and I saw some Kings fans talking about it, why the Kings had a timeout. They got that stop. There were like 6, 7, 8 seconds left. Why didn't they call a timeout and draw something up? This is kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. Like, if you're the head coach and you do call that timeout, you're giving the Hawks, while you're getting your guys in and you're getting to draw up a play, but you're giving the Hawks an opportunity to sub in their best defenders for one final stop and get their defense set. And potentially deny De'Aaron Fox or deny Keon Ellis or whoever they want the basketball. Mike letting Fox ride with it, considering Fox has scored 109 points in the last 2 games combined, and he did pretty damn good tonight too. Letting him go and trusting him in that spot to try and get a bucket and attack quickly in transition before the Hawks defense could get set, I understand and support that decision 100%. I am totally fine. Even knowing the result, I'm totally fine with the Kings not taking a timeout there. And whether you want to agree or disagree with me, agree or disagree with Mike Brown's decision, why don't you hear from De'Aaron Fox? I asked De'Aaron about that decision not to take a timeout down the stretch, and Fox shared the player perspective on why he prefers no timeout in that spot.
Fox, that last play, I know it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with calling a timeout there versus letting it ride. From the player perspective with you and the pace you like to play with, how did you feel about not taking that timeout and just letting go?
Nah, down one, and we get a stop like that, and like you're going down in transition, semi-transition. I'd rather you not call a timeout. And I mean, we've done it in the past, and I feel like we've had high success at it. Obviously, you're not gonna. It's not going to be nothing that you do is going to be successful all the time, because if we do call a timeout, then we missed, and everyone's like, oh, why weren't you playing transition? So we like our odds whenever we're able to get out in transition with that type of time left.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude, and along with the people that you're showing love to and appreciation to over this Thanksgiving time, you also need to make sure you're giving thanks to someone who oftentimes flies under the radar, and that's yourself. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying to make the best sense out of this crazy, wild world. It's not easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to yourself in addition to your loved ones and the people that you appreciate this time of year. Taking care of yourself mentally, especially during the holidays. The holidays can be a really tough time for a lot of people. Taking care of yourself mentally is so unbelievably important all year long, no matter what situations you're going through, whether it's something big, something small, anything in between. You need to talk to somebody and take care of yourself. It's the same way you exercise or eat right to keep your body physically in shape. You need to take care of yourself mentally, and therapy is a great way to do that. I'm speaking from experience. I've been seeing my therapist, TJ, for many, many years, since really COVID has been going on, and it's really changed my life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can change therapists at any time for no additional cost. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, so we talked about the officiating and the justifiable reasons to be frustrated or upset or angry at the officials and the impact that they had on this game. If you want to say that the Sacramento Kings lost this game because of the officiating, I laid out kind of a pretty good case for you there in that first segment. But that's not the only reason the Kings lost this game. There's a lot from this game that the Kings have to look themselves in the mirror and do some self-reflecting on and have some accountability with. Let's talk about just the fourth quarter alone, right? In the fourth quarter, we talked about all those foul calls that went against the Kings and the technical foul and everything and all that. But also in the fourth quarter, the Sacramento Kings scored just 15 points. In the fourth quarter, a close game. Offense is the strength of this Kings team, and I know, of course, they're missing Monk, DeRozan, and Sabonis. By the way, we got kind of a positive injury update on all three before the game. I'll share that with you coming up later in the podcast. But you're an offensive team. The game's right there for you. You just got to score. And the Kings didn't score. They shot 4 of 22, 18% from the field in the fourth quarter, and 1 of 11 from three-point range. That's 9%. When it mattered most, the Kings went cold. And Keon Ellis, I'm going to sing his praises here in a little bit, but in the fourth quarter, as good of a shooting night as Keon Ellis had, in the fourth quarter, down the stretch, Keon Ellis was 0 of 3 from 3-point range. Look, you can't win if you can't score. And yes, of course, offense is rhythm-based and flow-based, and the flow and rhythm was disrupted because of the officiating, right? That absolutely had an impact on it. But we can't, if we're being completely honest, like the Sacramento Kings don't deserve the excuse or don't deserve to have their issues and mistakes that they made brushed under the rug or blamed completely on officiating when at times they missed good looks, like open looks. And if you don't just it's not just the fourth quarter, right? This game had some stupid, crazy swings to it. Kings came out of the gate flat, and those aren't my words. That's the words of Kings head coach Mike Brown after the game. The Kings were down 22-6 to start this game to the Atlanta Hawks. They came out after a day off looking disinterested, looking tired, looking flat, quite frankly, not looking ready to play. Now, Keon Ellis saved the Sacramento Kings and got them back into it. They were down 16 points early on. Somehow swung this game all the way back to taking an 11-point lead in the second quarter. But here's the thing. In that same quarter, that 11-point lead turned into a 1-point deficit. So the Kings fight all the way back and build this big lead and almost immediately gave it all right back. And a lot of it correlated when Keon Ellis was out of the game. When Keon Ellis went out, the wheels kind of fell off the Kings' offense again because he wasn't out there to make shots for the Kings. So Sacramento has to look themselves in the mirror because they missed shots down the stretch when it mattered, passed up good looks down the stretch when it mattered, got off to a terrible start to this game, and blew a double-digit lead in a quarter. Not in a game, in a quarter they did that. So there's a lot of things from this game where the Kings have to look in the mirror and be honest with themselves that they need to clean up and they need to do better so that the officials hopefully don't have as much power to make as significant of an impact as they did down the stretch of this game here tonight. All right, let's talk about Keon Ellis. It's a shame. Again, like I feel bad, and I have to do this, but I feel bad that it's taken this long to talk about Keon Ellis' incredible night. I mean, a career high, 33 points, 9 of 15 from 3-point range. The dude was red hot. He also he hit his first 6 3-pointers to start this game. He was sensational. 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and 1 block. Actually, the way Keon first entered this game, I think he missed like a bunny at the rim and then I think he had like a turnover. And it was like, oh God, here we go again. Keon Ellis is really struggling. And then he just exploded from 3-point range, got some confidence, and he was 100% the king of the night for Sacramento. I give him all his flowers because he woke the Kings up. He woke the Kings up after that very slow, lethargic start. He is the 5th player in franchise history with 9 or more threes in a game, joining Keegan Murray, Mike Bibby, Omri Caspi, and Buddy Hield, and this stat is from Will Z. He's the first player with 20 or more points off the bench not named Malik Monk since Terrence Davis in March of 2023. So in a game where you're missing a lot of scoring. You're missing 3 of your top 4 players, including your 6th man and number 1 scorer off the bench. You had Keon Ellis step up in a major way offensively off the bench. And shout out to Trey Lyles, too. Trey Lyles has put together a lot of really good games. I think he has 3 double-digit games in his last 4 performances. Right? Trey Lyles stepped up in a major way, too. Back-to-back games where he started for Sacramento, and he's played really well. But here's the thing. Not to turn this into a negative because Keon deserves all the praise on the planet for the excellent night that he had. But it's hard to not feel like the Kings were wasteful over the last couple of games. This was a 4-game homestand. The Kings, thank God, have 3 days off from now to Friday before they play again. This game, the next game will be against the Clippers, a rematch against the Clippers. This one in the Intuit Dome for the first time, and this is an in-season NBA Cup game. But the Kings will have 3 days off before that, which this team desperately, desperately needs at this point in time. But they had a 4-game homestand, part of a 6 of their next 7 or 6 of 7 games at home stretch, the 7th game being the Clipper game on Friday. And I said to you going into that stretch that the minimum expectation for the Sacramento Kings was 4-2 over those 6. That needs to be the expectation. 5-1 is the goal. 6-0 would be perfect, but 4-2 was the minimum expectation. Well, here are your 2 losses, right? Now you have 2 more home games at the end of this stretch against Brooklyn and OKC. 2 difficult teams in their own right, especially that OKC game. You've lost your wiggle room, right? So you have to win out these final home games of this stretch to accomplish that 4-2 goal. And the 2 losses that you're already dealing with, that you've already suffered, one of them came on a night where De'Aaron Fox had 60 points. And the other one came on a night where Keon Ellis had 9 threes and a career-high 33. Now, things aren't as black and white as that, right? Context is extremely important. Guys who are playing, the Kings being shorthanded, the situations in the game, the circumstances, officiating, whatever you want, like all the context, of course, matters. But in the grand scheme of things, when we're looking at these games and this stretch, if I were to have told you coming into this stretch that the Sacramento that De'Aaron Fox would have a 60-point game, you're telling me, yeah, the Kings win that game. If I were to tell you Keon Ellis had a 33-point game with 9 made threes, you would tell me, or you would expect the Sacramento Kings won that game. Especially if in that same game I were to tell you that Trae Young had only 7 points. I think all of us would have said, yeah, the Kings are absolutely winning that game. So 2 big performances that the Kings kind of wasted. And there goes their wiggle room during this 6 home games in 7 stretch. Stuff like that comes back to bite you, especially at the end of the season. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, just $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, everything, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, new customers can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Put $5 on the easiest thing you can think of. Put $5 on the Cleveland Cavaliers next game because that team is freaking not losing. You will get that $150 in bonus bets. Win that bet wins on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we did it last game. We got to do it again. Let's talk about Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray's struggles continue, and he fouled out of tonight's game. Keegan Murray only played 22 and a half minutes tonight because he fouled out. Now, some of it, of course, falls into the questionable officiating, but Keegan also made some mistakes defensively. And unfortunately, on a night where, of course, the Kings are super short-handed, so they probably need big minutes out of Keegan, and they need more of an impact out of Keegan. Second night in a row where offensively he didn't do the job. 7 points, 3 of 9 shooting from the field, 1 of 3 from three-point range, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 4 turnovers. I think a couple things are fair after these last 2 games. Number one, I think it's fair 100% to be disappointed or frustrated with Keegan Murray's performances, especially when you feel like you got to have more with the Kings being without Sabonis, DeRozan, and Malik Monk. That's fair. I do also think it's fair to say, which kind of proves Monty McNair's reasoning towards going out and getting DeMar DeRozan in the first place, that Keegan just does not seem fully ready for a prominent scoring role to help De'Aaron Fox score the basketball, put the ball on the floor, and go out and hunt his shots and get his shots. He was not able to get anything really going against the Atlanta Hawks tonight. So he doesn't look ready for that prominent scoring role, and that is a fair thing to be concerned about in year 3, especially considering he was the 4th overall pick in the draft. But some of the criticisms that I've seen on social media and that I've been seeing over the last 24 hours or so, they need to chill a little bit. Because again, I will be critical of Keegan Murray. I also proudly wear how big of a fan and believer I am in Keegan Murray on my sleeve, and it's very well known to anyone who consistently listens to this podcast how much of a believer I am in Keegan Murray, just like many members, if not the entire front office of this organization. Perspective is really important, and it's hard to lose general perspective at times when you're in the midst of games like these last two where Keegan offensively just isn't playing well. But the perspective is this. The Kings have a roster filled with offensive pieces that are capable of helping this team overcome a Keegan Murray shooting slump or a shooting slump to one of their prominent players. I know a lot of those pieces were out tonight against the Hawks, but Keon Ellis stepped up. Trey Lyles stepped up offensively. There is more confidence in the offensive ability of this roster for the most part than there is defensive confidence. And that's important to bring up because while there are a lot of players on this team that offensively can make up for Keegan Murray's absence, defensively, nobody can. And that's really important. And I've seen a lot of people talk about how great Keegan Murray's rebounding the ball better. Great, Keegan Murray's playing better defense, but he can't shoot. His offense is gone from his rookie season. I hear you. I understand that, but it's not just he's rebounding the ball better and he's playing better defense. He's one of the best rebounders on the team, and he is the best defender on the team. That perspective is incredibly important because, look, nobody on this roster can do what Keegan Murray has to do every night. Not what he can do. He has to do it. Keegan Murray has to defend the opposing team's best player 1 through 4 every single night. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, doesn't matter. Best player, Keegan Murray is guarding them. That is extremely important. That is extremely important to understand. If you look at the numbers, he is playing some of the most minutes, not just on the Sacramento Kings, some of the most minutes in the NBA period so far this season. He's top 2 on the Kings in plus minus, meaning when he's on the floor, more often than not, good things are happening for the Sacramento Kings, and the Kings are winning, not losing. And consistently, the success that the Sacramento Kings have had over this 8-7 start features Keegan Murray on the floor. The difference in this team numbers-wise, statistically, when Keegan is on the floor versus Keegan is off the floor, especially defensively, is staggering. So Keegan is a prominent part of the foundation of what the Sacramento Kings do correct, and that's or do right and do correctly, and that is while going through a season-long shooting slump so far. Keegan offensively has had a couple bright moments, but for the most part, he has not been good to start this season, and still, he's at the center of the success that the Kings have had so far. So that perspective is important. I'm not saying you can't be disappointed or critical of what Keegan Murray's doing. I am too, and I've been critical of him over these last 2 episodes. But we got to stop with this whole, the Kings need to trade Keegan Murray, or the Kings need to use Keegan Murray to go out and get another star, because the Kings cannot survive without Keegan Murray. The loss of Domantas Sabonis over these last couple of games really hurts this team on the offensive end. If the Kings were to lose Keegan Murray, I promise you the Kings would lose a vast majority of their games. And knock on wood, the Kings don't lose Keegan Murray to any kind of injury anytime soon. Because defensively, Keegan is the backbone of this team at this point. And you need that in order to be successful. I don't care how good this roster is offensively. We've seen that year after year after year, not just with this version of the Kings, but with the Kings, period, over the course of the last 2-3 decades, or really the entire time that this team has been here in Sacramento. So you can be critical of Keegan 100%. You can feel the way you feel about Keegan Murray. I'm just telling you, cool it with some of these criticisms like the Kings have to move on from him, or he's not good enough to be here in Sacramento, or the Kings need to trade him to try and get the right star. I'm not saying he's untradeable, right? But we got to be realistic here. Don't give up on the guy because he's not giving you the offense that most of us prioritize because this is an offensively driven league, when defensively he's in the trenches every single night doing what needs to be done for the Sacramento Kings to have a chance in this game or any game, let alone actually win the game. Look at the numbers. When Keegan Murray's on the floor, the Kings have consistently been at their best this season. That is not a coincidence, and that's while Keegan has been struggling as much as he has offensively. All right, I have some good news for you in terms of the injuries for the Sacramento Kings. I'm going to read this injury update verbatim. We got this right before the game tonight. Kings guard Malik Monk, who has missed 4 games due to a moderate right ankle sprain sustained during the second quarter against the Phoenix Suns on November 10th, was reevaluated today. Monk has been cleared for individual on-court workouts. He will be listed as out tonight versus the Atlanta Hawks and will be reevaluated in the coming days. Great news for Malik Monk. He seems to be progressing well, maybe even ahead of schedule. Remember, he was initially expected to be out 2 weeks, which would have been all the way up until the Oklahoma City Thunder game to round out those 6 home games in a 7-game stretch. Kings guard / forward DeMar DeRozan, who has missed 2 games due to lower back tightness, was reevaluated today. DeRozan has made significant improvement and has also been cleared for individual on-court workouts. He will be listed as out tonight versus the Atlanta Hawks and is considered day-to-day going forward. Finally, Kings center Domantas Sabonis, who has missed 1 game due to lower back tightness, was reevaluated today. Sabonis has made significant improvements and has been cleared for individual on-court workouts. He will be listed as out tonight versus the Atlanta Hawks and considered day-to-day going forward. This feeds into what I was telling you on Locked On Kings over the last couple of days. This is what I expected. The Kings played like this. So today is November 18th. Right, or maybe when you're listening to this is November 19th. But the night of the Kings versus Hawks game was the 18th of November. That was also the 11th game that the Kings have played this month. The Kings have played a crap ton of games and not had a lot of time off so far in November. Now they have 3 days off before getting back in action on Friday. It makes a ton of sense for players who are banged up and players that you want to be careful with, especially back injuries to guys like Sabonis and DeRozan. It makes complete sense for the Kings to hold them out of this Hawks game, let them get 3 days of extra rest, and then bring them back on Friday. The Malik Monk is an added bonus. At this point, my prediction, again, I'm not a medical specialist. I'm just reading the tea leaves and trying to figure out everything that's going on and just kind of my understanding of the situation and how these injuries work and injury timetables work. I think all 3 will be back for Friday's game. I think minimum Sabonis and DeRozan will be back for Friday's game, but maybe Malik Monk will be back too. So I think reinforcements are coming for this Kings team. They've gotten through this brutal stretch without all 3 of them, and I think they're going to be fine come Friday. So that just, you can believe me or you don't have to believe me. We'll see if I'm right or not. That's just the way I'm feeling on the situation. I think minimum DeRozan and Sabonis will play on Friday, but I think there's a good chance that all 3 of them will play against the Clippers on Friday. All right, now I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on Keegan Murray, your thoughts on Keon Ellis and the great night that he had, your thoughts on tonight's game. I know many of you are going to want to talk about the officiating. Let's talk about it. Let it fly. You listen to me. I'm also ready to listen to you and read your comments in the comment section on YouTube or send me an email at Matt George, you can reach me on Twitter at Matt George Sack and Blue Sky at Matt George Sack, or you can email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Just because the Kings are taking 3 days off doesn't mean we're taking 3 days off. I have some good guests coming for you, including Sacramento Kings television analyst Katie Christensen. She's going to be joining me on the Wednesday edition of Locked On Kings this week, so you can look forward to that. Can't wait to have you then. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.